Hey, how are you?
Hey, how are you?
Good. How old are you?
32.
Great. What's your question?
Do you believe in hell and heaven after death?
No, I don't.
So what do you believe happens when we die?
I think when you die, your body stops functioning and you don't experience it all. Your body decays, rots away. People forget you. Your memories fade. People's memories of you fade away over time, and you become essentially erased from history, never to be recalled upon again.
So does your conscious like continue on or nothing? So you become.
I don't see any evidence of consciousness going on.
Well, I appreciate your point of view. Thank you for your time.
Yeah. Now, people are saying it's harsh, it's terrible, but there's another side to this. Yes, it might be sad to think that all we get is this, but when you're confronted with that fact, that harsh fact of reality, you want to embrace this life more. You want to cherish this life more when you know this is all we get. You know, so there's two sides to this. It's not just only sad. You can see things in a very optimistic perspective still, when even recognizing the fact that we die and nothing happens after. Okay.
Thank you.
Hello.
All right. What's your question?
What's up, Mike? I just noticed you were talking a little bit about atheism. I was a little bit curious about it. I'm more agnostic. I feel like atheism is a little bit too much conviction in a specific belief, almost similar to having faith in a religion for me. I was curious as to have you have faith that there is no God rather than, the opposite, just indifference towards there being a God versus there not being one.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what God you're talking about. If you're talking about, nature being God, well, then of course I'm agnostic towards that. That could be the case that nature is God, but you're just labeling things that already exist. If you're talking about the Abrahamic gods, the God that loves us but kills us, I think that's that's a contradictory God, and
Maybe I
that
don't.
couldn't
Sorry, I
exist.
don't mean to cut you off. Maybe I don't know enough about atheism. I'm just curious about, I guess, your definition of atheism, that there is no God. So you
No,
strictly believe there's absolutely no higher power.
atheism to me is a lack of belief in a God. That's all.
That's very fair. I feel like that's very similar to being agnostic, is it not?
Agnosticism deals with knowledge, right? Knowledge about something.
I thought it was more so to do with like indifference as well. Correct?
Yes, in a way, agnostics are just indifferent to. They have to be swayed by the facts or evidence, perhaps. But the point is that you could be an atheist and just lack a belief in God, or you could be an atheist and say that you do not believe, or you think that God cannot exist. You can still be atheist in those things. It just depends what you mean by it. And what I mean, how I use the term, is by saying I just don't believe in God. That's all.
Which is
Not
fair.
just
I guess
this is just
what I'm
semantic.
poking at. Oh, sorry. What I'm poking at a little bit, I guess, is I feel like when you talk about atheism or religion, a lot of it has to do with exactly belief. Like you use the word belief a lot there. Scientifically, there shouldn't be belief, right? There should be conviction in statements. There should be data behind what you're saying. There should be knowns and unknowns. I feel like the only thing that you can do with a higher power is at least identify that this is something that is unknown. There's no identified God. Uh, for that reason,
You could also be atheist and suggest that this definition of God doesn't actually make sense inherently, and hence
completely
you can't
agree.
make sense of it at all. And
Completely agree.
that's what some people also hold to. So
I guess my issue with that though as well is like part of I guess the argument of a higher power is that if you cannot disprove it, if there's a faith like there, if you literally cannot disprove it, technically speaking, even though it could be statistically improbable, it still could exist. Therefore, you can't necessarily say with conviction it doesn't exist.
sure, if you think that your mom's God, well, sure, it could exist. There could be a God. If you think that a God is a flying horse on Mars, Well, then, okay, that's logically consistent. It could be
Valid.
real, but look, all I care about is the evidence. I care about the good arguments for these things. That's all.
Very fair. I guess my biggest issue with the conversation is just maybe a cult following for it. It makes me want to lean more in the direction of, if there's so much supposed evidence from history of people witnessing miracles from their specific religions or specific things that they've witnessed, it makes me more predisposed to not count it out than saying something, I feel like saying my mom is God is not the same thing as qualifying the Torah, the Bible, or the Quran as, evidence of something that may have happened.
Okay, what's your question about that? Do you have any
My
questions?
point is, I feel like it's scientifically wrong, like logically wrong, just to say with conviction that while it sounds ridiculous, it's impossible, that this is something that
Look,
cannot
the reason
exist.
why we'd say it's impossible is because of certain logical issues with God. There's a logical problem of evil, the problem of creation, the problem of divine hiddenness. These are logical problems with many versions of gods. So that's why we can say it's impossible, right? There's a contradiction entailed by its definition. That's the problem.
Do you feel that we have a full grasp on every aspect of this conversation logically? Do you feel that we can say
don't
with
need
true
a full
conviction no
grasp.
evidence could ever come up to disprove any of our current arguments, that it's impossible?
We don't need a full grasp of everything.
I disagree. I feel like if new evidence came up to disprove anything that you just said, it's something you should recognize scientifically.
No, because not all facts are scientific. Right?
What?
Yeah, right. So there are
How
different
do you
types of
mean?
truths. There are synthetic truths. There are analytical truths, and analytical truths mean they are true by definition. Like two plus two is four. That would be an analytical truth. Or there's an A in cat. That's an analytical truth. that we
Absolutely.
can come
These are
to
provable,
without-
these are
that we
provable
can come to
facts. I
without-
agree.
Without any kind of empiricism, right? These are a priori.
Right. Like these are true. To your point, I understand what you're saying. Like it seems very unlikely that things that we have a very lawful, logical argument for, like 2 + 2 is 4, is something that new evidence wouldn't come out and disprove. What I'm saying right now is that I feel like there is not enough current knowledge, evidence, or facts to disprove the idea of higher theories. For example, we don't have a true, like we have theories about creation, for example. We do not have any logical founding for why we're here right now.
Well, that question seems invalid. Why are we here? Why must there could be a brute? There could be a brute contingency or a brute
You're
fact.
right. You know what? I was less clear than I
There
should have
doesn't
been.
have to be an explanation for
I'm
everything.
speaking specifically to creation. Like you brought up creation. I'm saying there is not a specific lot, like there is not a factual proof for why we were created, right? Or why anything was created.
Look, the reason why I brought up the problem of divine hiddenness and creation is because these are internal critiques. We're taking on the theist's view. We're taking on the believer's view, and we're going, wait a minute, this seems inconsistent. So under their definition, they would be wrong. And it would tell that they
I
are
agree with
incorrect.
you. I agree with you. But at the same
Okay,
time,
so then we can come to disproving them.
Disagree.
By showing how they're
disagree.
inconsistent.
Proving inconsistencies in one argument does not completely invalidate the argument. We do
Well,
not have
it
enough
does-
proof
it
to have
does if you
conviction that
think-
they're wrong.
It does if you think that God is good natured, and then we come up with logic that shows otherwise, right? Or we can prove an inconsistency.
That's
that shows
fine, but that's not like
Yeah.
let's go back to creation, for example. There's a claim that God created, right? I feel like that's the most basic claim you can make for most religions. There's usually a creator. We do not have a direct invalidation of that claim, do we? So for that reason, I feel
You're
like
right.
being an atheist is crazy. That's too much conviction that they're wrong.
Shim, there are certain claims. We have to investigate each claim differently, of course. But the point is that logically speaking, with pure logic, we can deduce that God is inconsistent or impossible based on the contradictions it produces.
To be fair,
That's all. Just like a square circle.
It depends on your definition of God, right? Like
Exactly. It depends on what you mean by God.
But regardless, if you want to generally speak about, that's why I used the expression higher power earlier. That way I wouldn't deduce, like if you say God, that tends to lean, especially with me speaking English, Christian. Higher power, that doesn't necessarily invalidate that, though. There's not enough evidence to say with conviction that these people are wrong, aside for something smells funny. My mom is God, like what you referenced.
Sure, if you're going to say that God's a higher power, great. I just don't know what that means. It doesn't, it's not, there's not enough meat there for me to deal with. I can't do anything with it. What do you
That's
mean by
fair.
higher power? That's another problem.
Damn.
That's another problem.
We cannot go that deep, though, into specific gods or anything like that. In general, I get what you're saying. I think my biggest issue with true atheism is there are so many holes you have to close that factually are impossible to truly close across multiple religions. Obviously, there are inconsistencies like we discussed earlier, which I totally agree with. I don't think that completely invalidates some claims that there could be.
Great. I'm not saying that one logical argument can disprove everything about God.
Yeah.
But I'm saying that if you, by definition, if you think that God is A, and then I show you that God is B, then that God can't exist, right? It's like a square circle.
To your point, I think I have a fundamental misunderstanding of what being.
Yeah. Let's get the next questioner.
I actually do have something to add to that one. So it's actually very possible that there have been human civilizations before us. So there's a theory that like the Egyptian pyramids, that they aren't tombs at all, right? Well, I mean, that's kind of been proven lately, but it looks like they're more like a chemical plant or a power plant, you know, and it makes sense because humans have never... Humans, as we've evolved, like our civilization, right? We've slowly made things bigger and bigger and bigger, but somehow we still don't know how to build the pyramids. Like, how did they do that? And
We have a very good understanding of the pyramids. We don't look. It's the reason why the pyramids is so hard to determine how they were built is because it took so long. It took generations, and different people were the ones managing the construction of the pyramid over 30, 40, 50 years. So, of course, it's going to be difficult to pinpoint exactly how they did it and track down every document.
So,
but there have been documents about the pyramids being built, and there's different methods we can infer based on what they had back then as to how they did it. It's not magic. There's no power plant behind it. There's no electricity in the pyramids.
If you look at the structure of the pyramid.
Look, Abigail, I would love to entertain your...
Yeah, I mean, it's not really that relevant to this conversation.
What is your question today?
I was actually curious about your view on atheism. So I'm agnostic, and I have leaned towards spiritual, and I have leaned towards atheism. And I'm just curious what your perspective on it is, because I spent about 3 years being fully atheist. And I just felt so lonely. And I was wondering, like, what is your perspective and your experience with that? And like, how long have you felt this way?
You felt lonely in what way?
I guess before being atheist, I was very spiritual. I've never been religious. I actually denounced religion at a very young age. But I've always felt like there was something, and that something, like something that I could pray to, something that I could ask for help, you know, this higher power.
Of course, Abigail, of course.
It made me feel less alone.
Of course. Every person on this planet wants a friend, wants somebody to care about them. We look for love. We yearn for love. We yearn for a parental figure to help us and guide us. We yearn for others. That's how we are as people. So of course we're going to, embedded in our brains, be more predisposed to having these thoughts of, you know, wanting somebody to look for and asking ourselves questions and looking to some kind of spiritual thing. Of course.
Especially
but the problem is that our brains are plastic in a way. You can change your thought patterns about the world, and when you become comfortable with the fact that none of this stuff seems to be evident outside of the physical world, you kind of just become comfortable with the fact that we are alone in all this, and it is up to us, our trajectories forward. And you might feel lonely in a spiritual way, but I over time have learned to embrace the mystery. I've learned to embrace the dark unknown about the world. I've learned to embrace people more, right? So the fact that I'm confronted with this harsh reality that all we get is this.
Really
And
harsh. When
this
you
I,
first like speak
yes,
about it,
it's harsh, but I also learn to cherish the things we do have and know more. So there's two sides to this equation, right? You can leave religion and feel like there's this little pocket of spirituality that's missing from your life, or you can confront the fears, go into the darkness, and just become comfortable with it, right? It's like going into a dark cave with a candle. Yeah, the darkness is scary, but you have a little bit of candle there to see, and you're just clinging on to the candlelight as much as you can. That's kind of what atheism is like to me. This is how I kind of see the world. Science is the candle in the dark, and every bit of learning, every bit of understanding the universe, I gain appreciation for what we have. I gain this purpose and love for things. So yeah, there is a spiritual way to look at this, even as an atheist. You don't have to just be lonely and resort to some kind of esoteric nonsense. You can embrace reality. Reality can be emotionally stirring to us too. All right, what's your next question?
Well, I went back to being spiritual because, one, I did feel very lonely. I think I liked being able to reach out to something, at least feel the comfort of something watching over me, right? But one thing that I've thought about a lot, and I'm curious about your thoughts on it, is we have always searched for something. Like if you think about like our earliest civilizations that we know about, right? You think like we've always worshipped some form of higher power, and it makes me really wonder, is there one? Is there something that calls us? Or is it just our own lonely echo of like, please
Yes, Abigail, exactly. That's what I think. I think that the reason why we have these thoughts about some god or spiritual being is because if we don't have those thoughts, we become lonelier, right? We feel depressed if there's nobody out there guiding, looking out for us. We feel lonely. And then in the past, life has been so harsh for us as people, as humans. For most of our history, we didn't have phones, electricity, clean water. We didn't have this stuff. So back then, we resorted to these stories that got passed down to us. We resorted to we didn't have as much knowledge as we had today, right? In the past, we didn't know what stars were. We didn't know what planets are. So all that mystery, all that loneliness, we kind of evolved to think that there's somebody out there looking for us, caring about us, and watching us. But again, these ideas, they don't seem to be actually real. They don't seem to be fundamental to the world, how it actually works. The world seems to be indifferent to our preferences. The universe does not have to conform to our preferences. And that's why when you become comfortable with that fact, when you embrace that fact, everything changes for you. You're no longer comfortable. You're no longer scared, right? Because you're embracing the mystery instead of shunning it away and being scared of it. You're embracing it, and that is what science does. That's why science is a candle in the dark, as Carl Sagan said. That's what science is. That's the entire point of the book, The Demon Haunted World. It's to show us that religion was the human way of being fearful, and science is a way of alleviating that fear.
There's still so much we don't know, though.
Good. That's good to be, from a scientific perspective, that's good. Because not only is the fact that there's so much art that we don't know make the stuff we do know more valuable and more precious, but it also gives us motivation to go out and look for more things. It's beautiful in a way that there is mystery out there. It's something we like, we enjoy when you know how to navigate the universe properly, right? From a religious point of view, it's hard to navigate things. You get lost, you get confused. But from a scientific perspective, things become more clear. You have a more clear compass that points in the right direction to finding more and more truths. And that's what science is doing.
So, have you ever seen Star Trek: The Next Generation?
Not much of it.
Oh man, there's a few episodes that actually touch upon like some form of God, but it's more like an alien entity. And it really makes you wonder, like, are there entities that we are not, we are incapable of understanding, but do they watch over us? There's actually one episode where there was a god.
Yeah, there could be all kinds of things out there, Abigail. There could be flying unicorns. There could be magic leprechauns. Great. But look, all these questions about, what else could be out there, and focusing on the mystery so much, you lose out on what you do know. You lose out on the stuff that we do know. There's so much about what we do know that's more worthy of our time than sitting there and becoming scared and just, getting stuck in all these existential questions about where do we come from? What else is out there? Oh no, it's scary. That's inefficient thinking. Science makes your thinking more efficient. It asks the better questions and gets you to the better answers that actually go into making solutions.
I can see that, but I feel like when I went back to being a bit spiritual, it also gave me a bit of peace and a bit of, I don't know, curiosity for the unknown. There is so much we don't know.
Great. You can have that. But don't get stuck there in those spiritual places because it's not very fruitful. If you sit there for too long, it doesn't. Look, what does spirituality really do for you other than make you feel better? Nothing much. It sounds cool. It feels good for a little bit, but it's temporary. Whereas a more solid, more long-term mindset is science. Science is a way to have long-term peace. I'm very peaceful. I'm very content in my life. I don't need any of that esoteric stuff because I'm happy with reality and I'm happy with what we do know. I'm content with the fact that we are just apes on a rock. I'm happy with that because look at what we apes can do. Look at what we are. Look at what we can do. That's enough for me to be happy and peaceful and content. And I don't need any of that stuff. And if it's out there, great. It's, icing on the cake. But the real good stuff is here. Your friends, your family, this earth, nature, animals. That's the good stuff.
It really is. You're right.
All right. Any other questions?
I had for you.
All right. Thank you. Look, these are important questions because people don't talk about this enough, right? A lot of atheists just say, oh, no, there is no God. There can't be God. Spirituality bad. But there is room for this. There is room for this kind of spirituality, even in atheism. There's room for this. We shouldn't just dismiss all those things. We should be open to other possibilities, but also recognize that you can be happy without religion.
Hey, what's up, brother?
Hey, what's your question?
Hey, I just came up. I came on your live. I was gonna ask you, are you atheist?
Yes.
Okay, and as an atheist, can you tell me a little bit about being an atheist and what made you become an atheist?
It's I was asked a question by somebody, do you believe in Adam and Eve or evolution? And I said, I was a Christian at the time. I thought it both were compatible with each other. I thought they were both able to be true at the same time. And then I recognized that they can't be. When I went back to the Bible and learned, I read it more. I learned more about the science. Right? There was a confliction there. There was a conflict that I couldn't fix or solve. And that's why I started to question religion and question God entirely. And that's why I'm here today.
Okay, yeah, that's you said you looked at the Bible and you looked at science together, and it was contradicting itself. You said, and let me ask you, have you read the Quran? Because I read the Bible and I read the Quran too, and I'm a Muslim. So what I did is I know a lot about science. So what I did is basically I read the whole Quran, and I looked at science too. And one thing I learned that impacted my life was that science, that basically science was just proving Quran to be right.
Oh, okay. So then why in the Quran does it say that stars fall from the sky in 86:2?
Why did he say it falls from the sky?
That's not scientific.
Where does he say that? I'm gonna search
86:2. 86:2.
86 2. What chapter is that? I'm gonna take a look at it right now.
I don't know what chapter it is, but I think just look up Surah 86:2. Stars fall from the sky. There's also 1666 where it talks about cow's milk being pure. It's not pure. Cow's milk is full of bacteria and pus and urine. It's not pure. There's embryology. The fact that the Quran says that semen comes from the backbone. That's not true.
Did you know that the Quran talks about if you count how many times it says the word day is three the amount of times it says the word day is 365, which is in a year. Did you know that the word month says 12 times, which is the 12 months in a year? Did you know that it talks about the?
I don't know if that's true. I don't know if that's true necessarily, but even if it is, okay. I don't see how this demonstrates a magic man made it. People could have done that. People could have easily made these kinds of patterns in their stories, just like we do in Cat in the Hat.
But this is way before calendar, everything came out. Quran came out. This came out way before.
No, sir. The calendar predates the Quran by far.
Okay. Let's put that to the side.
There's
a lot of things where Quran talks about the crack in the moon. It talks about way before that even happened on the moon.
There is no crack on the moon, sir, in any significant degree.
I can pull up the surah that talks about it. That talks about that too.
The moon isn't splitting in half at all.
I'm not saying it's splitting in half.
Okay, well that's what the Quran says.
Okay, I'll look it up for you too.
Yeah, look it up. And look, a lot of Muslims will say this. Ooh, look, the Quran matches with science. But I'm sorry, that's just people trying to persuade you that there's something true happening here. If you look into the science deeper, you recognize that there are many mistakes and errors in the Quran.
And also the Quran talks about...
It's not falsifiable. It's a storybook. It's a storybook that largely got its influence from the Bible.
You know, the crazy thing is, NASA and America, they have us believing that, hey, the world is around and it's a ball. If you look at the Quran, it literally talks about, hey, the Quran says, I forgot the surah. It literally talks about where God said, I laid the world as a flat rug, and I put a dome on it for anything from outside coming in.
Adam, there is no dome, and the earth is indeed spherical, because if it wasn't, how do you have day and night? Adam, how?
And also the Quran talks about where
I can't deal with people like that, right? This is what many Muslims do. They just want to steamroll. Blah, 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 blah. Look, Quran, my Quran. You have to relax and listen to the countering data. The earth is spherical. We know this because there is day and night. Why would that happen if the earth was flat? I mean, the sun would have to vanish from the sky, because the earth, imagine a flat earth, sun on top of it, like a light bulb on a desk. Well, there's no way that you can have night because the sun's always there. Or how about the fact that if you go from one side of the earth to the other, The star patterns in the sky are different. You see a different night sky. How is that possible if the Earth is flat? These are simple facts that utterly debunk a flat Earth, or the split moon, or all the nonsense in the Quran. I mean, it's so easy to criticize the book. And that's why I'm not a theist.
Hey, what's up, Mike? So I wanted to ask you a question about AI. I know you like AI, and I do too. It's very interesting. So given the current advancements in AI, do you think it's possible for like a machine to potentially develop like a sense of like self-awareness? And I mean, if so, like what would that even look like? Because if they did develop self-awareness, I mean, I don't know. Maybe they would rebel. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that there's nothing inherently special about human consciousness that would make it impossible for any other framework to have consciousness. I think that although humans are biological beings, and our type of consciousness is biological, right? It's produced by neurons, electricity flowing through our brains. I think the same could be reproduced in a way digitally. I think that one day it will be possible to replicate consciousness digitally. I don't see why it would be impossible. I mean, we don't know the pathway there yet. I mean, we don't know for sure yet, but I don't see why it would be impossible to replicate consciousness or self-awareness in a digital being.
Right.
Because if you think about it, the brain and how our awareness works is basically electricity, electrons flowing through the brain. And if you can replicate that in a way systematically, digitally, I think you can get that in an AI system.
Right. So I mean, I agree. I think
AI can already be logical. It's
right. Yeah.
AI is already logical. So I think the next step would be consciousness.
I agree. But do you think that we should do that? Because I feel like the whole reason why we would make AI is to help us, right? So I don't think that we even should do that.
There will be no choice in the future. Awareness is very valuable. Having awareness, to the extent we have it, makes our society run the way it does, and that's why it's valuable not just to us, but also to the AI, because the AI can perform better, right? So if we're going to be or if we're going to take dominion over the AI, we're going to want to give them awareness. We're going to have no choice, because with consciousness comes power. And
That's true.
You're not going to want to remove that from AI. You're going to want to give it to them.
Okay, so then
the same with sentience too. I think that robots are going to become sentient and conscious too. Like,
I mean, but then wouldn't they just take over the world? I mean, it's like I don't see how they'd probably be stronger than us, smarter than us.
Oh, look, we're conscious. Does that mean that every person wants to take over the world?
No,
but look, the people who want to take over the world are typically motivated for bad reasons. Now, an AI system is not going to have those same motivations. Why would they?
Because if they're sentient,
and that's why I think AI systems are not going to be as susceptible, at least as susceptible as us, to that bad motivations. Because humans are fallible. We're very, very fallible. We're very flawed. We have bad thinking. We have screwed up brains sometimes.
You're glitching out for me.
And that's why AI systems that are perfectly replicated are not going to have those flaws that we do.
Okay, so here's what I'm thinking is that if they do develop sentience, then don't you think that, I mean, if we're using AI to run the economy, we're using them to do everything for us, don't you think that they would think that they're being treated a little bit unfairly?
No. And the reason why is because, number one, they're going to not have the same predisposition to feeling bad about not getting wages. What do they care? They're robots. They're not going to they don't have families. They're going to be sentient, not in the exact ways we are, right? When I say consciousness, when I say sentience, I don't mean the same way we are. They're going to be aware in a different way that's not going to render them susceptible to these same human instincts, right? look, our instincts have evolved for millions of years. We're not fit for modern civilization for the most part.
Right.
For a significant part of it. I mean, we're very anxious. We're very scared people, and this is the remnants of our evolutionary past. Robots and AI are not going to have that. They're going to be vastly different, and in almost every way, it's going to be a better difference.
Okay, so then I have another question. It's a little bit of a different topic. If we manage to develop a theory of quantum gravity, how do you think it will like change our understanding of space, time, and like the nature of reality?
It'll help us learn about the Big Bang. It'll help us learn about what happens in black holes. It will tell us about how time works. Gravity is linked to time. We still don't know what time is.
Right.
So if we understand how gravity works, we'll know how time works in space, and we might be able to actually generate universes if we know how to manipulate space and time itself gravitationally. It's possible that we can create black holes. We can do all kinds of things. Perhaps even time travel. So yeah, knowing gravity is literally the key to the universe. Understanding gravity is the key to the universe.
Do you think that I mean there's a possibility that we'll get there, or
Not
what?
in our lifetime, I don't think, but perhaps perhaps maybe sooner than we think, but I don't know if it's going to happen anytime in the next 50, 60 years.
Okay, so then you brought up the black holes, and that reminded me of a question I wanted to ask you on your last Q&A. So I know that white holes are like mathematically possible, but is there any like evidence or feasible theory suggesting that like white holes could exist? And like, I mean, if white holes do exist, how could we like detect one?
Well, this is all hypothetical. White holes are hypothetical at the moment. They require something called quantum tunneling to make sense of. But it's purely mathematical. We don't know. We wouldn't know how to find them if we could. But black holes are dark because there's light doesn't escape it. But white holes would be very bright because light does escape it. So we wouldn't know. We would find something probably very bright and probably very gravitationally influential. But we wouldn't know what that really looks like.
Yeah, some people have a theory that it came before the Big Bang or something, and that's how the Big Bang came about. But anyways, yeah, that was all the questions I wanted to ask you. So thank you for letting me come on up.
Yeah. We could be living in a giant white hole right now. The universe itself could be a white hole. And at the end of it, at the Big Bang, you go through it and it's a black hole. There could be this dynamic between white and black holes.
So I also saw something that said that, I think it was Neil deGrasse Tyson, that if a black hole and a white hole combined, it would create a wormhole.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so with a wormhole, is that a chance of going back in time in a sense?
Not just in time, but another universe. Yes.
Man, it's all interesting stuff. Very interesting. But yeah, thank you, Mike, for letting me come on up.
Thank you. Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Hi. Yeah. What's your question?
Hi. I actually had a different question, but I was just thinking also about the AI. When you said that it could be consciousness, wouldn't that also mean we would not be allowed to turn it off because it would be unaliving a person? I'm just thinking about that.
Well, we wouldn't give necessarily the robots the same rights we do. But yes, you're right. Generating robots with consciousness and awareness and essentially life would be something that raises ethical concerns, of course. And yes, I think that eventually, this is far in the future, but eventually they will have their own rights, and it will be seen as bad. It will be frowned upon to harm or disturb robots in a way. Yeah, this is a very, very interesting thing. But
Okay.
I think that you're right. I think that they would have some rights.
Okay. Yeah, let's see. I mean, I'm not sure if we're gonna face this question. My other question was going in that direction. It's not directly a vegan question, or kind of maybe, because I was just thinking, since we have to consider animals also moralic, from a morality standpoint. So if let's assume it's not the case, I know, but let's assume it would be necessary for us to eat meat to survive. Would be even allowed to do so? Because wouldn't we have to say my life is not more important than the life of, let's say, the animal there? So should I just accept to not survive because my life is not more important than the one of the animal, right? You
No.
get my point?
First of all, when I say I'm vegan, I'm not saying that animals are just as important as me. Clearly, there's a difference in the moral value we give them, or there's a difference in the value we place upon animals versus humans. But what we're saying is that there's sufficient value in animals. They're sufficiently aware, conscious, and sentient so that we shouldn't eat them and harm them. So, although, yes, my life is to me way more valuable than an animal, and so is yours, but we still shouldn't harm them at all because we don't need to.
Okay, so but when it comes, let's say, to a critical moment, we could justify it to
Yes, you're right. If a human really wanted to eat an animal, if they really had to, if they had no other option, yes, we think it's perfectly justified to eat an animal. Just like it would be justified to eat a person if you had to, if you had no other option. We think that survival supersedes survival of the self, right? Bodily autonomy that supersedes others, and that's how it
Okay,
works.
let me pack this question maybe in a different package. So let's go for, you would then guess, based on that, I think you would also agree to let's say you need a medication to survive, right? That you would also agree, I guess, then you can unalive an animal so you can get a medication to survive. Would you also say that's
There
true?
are no other options. If it's impossible to get from a plant-based source, yes, I think that it would be justified to do that. But that's not a concern. Going to the future, there's not going to be. It's going to be way easier to get medicine in the future. That's plant-based or without using animal products.
Okay. And maybe a final question, that direction. Would that also apply if you need that medication? Let's say it's not about something life-threatening, but something, that's, you would still survive, but it's some kind of quality of life. There's some medications that, you probably could survive without. It's just,
I think there are thresholds there that have to be met. The quality of life is negligible. It's not going to be justified to kill an animal, right? So there are thresholds, and they're very high or steep in my eyes.
Is there some kind of objective or some kind of something, which you can say this is where the line is? How could I tell?
There is no such thing. There is no clear dividing line in almost any ethical framework. It's always going to be blurred in some places. So it's going to be gray in some places. It's almost never black and white in every case.
Okay. So for some it would be okay, for some it wouldn't be, and it would be.
Yeah. To me, it just depends on the situation. It's contextual. And that's why we have to use our brains, depending on the context, to think about the best solution.
Okay. Yeah, that's all from my side.
Thank you. All right, so the next guest here. Very good question so far. Hey, what's your question?
Hello.
Hi, what's your question?
Hi, how are you? Yes, so I just wanted to say that So, what's your opinion about? So, I was thinking when you said that with being atheist and being able to have some emotional wonder of the unknown, and because and then all that. I understand you as an atheist. Of course, science will be a different perspective. You will take science as a different way because, but how come there's so many great scientists that are Christians? I mean, nowadays, millions of them probably, and they don't have no problem separating both. They see it as a different thing, right?
You're asking why are there Christian scientists?
No,
Because you don't have to be. You don't have to be a scientist. You don't have to be purely secular to be a scientist. You could be religious and do science, right? But you don't. The difference is you're not using the Bible to do science. You're not using the Quran to do science. You're
Absolutely
using
not.
critical thinking skills to do science.
Absolutely, yes. I am, and I agree with you. Maybe it's because American Protestants Christians are quite different than not even Lutherans. Lutheran Protestants, you'll be surprised. Like European and German, they have no like they're not like the Americans Protestants at all.
Okay,
Like
great. What is your question? Next question.
my question is okay. So basically, about veganism. I want to talk about it. So my question for you is like more. I know you keep talking about sentient beings. I honestly did my research. I was over an hour. I did it for you. I mean, not for you, but for me as well. Like, what's this guy talking about? I don't see any solids. I don't think that's a scientific term, sir. I don't think so. I couldn't find any real studies. I mean, we hardly understand our brain. We know more about the surface of Mars than our own conscious. We cannot
Okay,
explain
so
too many
your
things. You're
question,
telling me that. Mhm.
your question is that you don't think animals are sentient?
I don't think that term. I think that term is meaningless, sir. It's not scientific. It's philosophical. It's ideology.
Okay, you think animals are meaningless?
No, I'm telling you, sentient. That concept is you are assuming too much about it. You like to use it as it's like a fact, like something well known. It's not a scientific.
I'm so lost. All right, see the next person. Sorry, sir. I just did not understand your question. I'm sorry. I just didn't understand what you were saying. You've been up here for an hour? I think you're a troll, that's why. Hey.
Well, Mike, can you hear me?
Yeah, how old are you?
Okay, I'm 18, 2005.
Okay,
Right.
what's your question?
So I have a question, right? Veganism wise, right? Why do you think it's so why do you think it's so much better than like just meat eating, right? You said it's for ethical purposes, right? There's euthanizing animals where you can just like I don't even know what it's called. It's like a gun, but without even a bullet. Just staple their head, pokes their head, and then retracts the gun. It's like,
Okay, if we did that to you tomorrow, would that be okay?
okay, well, there's no purpose in that, right? Because you're looking for food when you're looking for
Oh,
animals.
it just, I like the way your body tastes.
Well, no, there's human morals to that because that's cannibalism. However,
So now you don't want to be bolted in the head. See, the problem is
no,
that
but-
you would never make this, you would never do the same action to humans, right? That's why I don't do it to the animals, because I want to be consistent. You're not. There's no reason to harm and exploit those animals. And it's not just the fact that they don't feel pain. It's not the fact that, oh, look, I'm going to kill this person quickly. But that doesn't matter. You're still taking away their experience that they could have had. That's the problem, too. We shouldn't treat animals like objects that we get to exploit. And the same applies to people. If you want to be consistent, you have to be vegan in this regard. If you're not vegan, you're just being inconsistent and you're being immoral. And that's it. What's your next question?
okay, proteins and stuff, right? Like food for better of the environment and better of yourself, right? I think personally that there should be like a month dedicated to veganism, right? Where they like just take
Sir,
off.
what is your
meat foods.
question? What is your question?
I was leading into it, all right? But So why do you think veganism is better for your body?
Veganism is not a diet.
But
Your
it can be.
plant-based diets, I agree that plant-based diets are better for your body. The reason being is because it lowers your BMI, it lowers your rate of heart disease, cancer, arthritis, diabetes. It's more fibrous. There's more fiber in your diet. You're getting more likely fruits and vegetables. You're getting more antioxidants that meat does not give you. There are many reasons why plant-based diets are better for your body.
Okay, well, meat gives you more creatine, which plants don't give you. You can argue that as well. On
Well,
top
first
of
of all,
that,
creatine is not essential, so you don't need to get it from your diet.
essential, but it's like better for you. Okay.
Your body makes it in sufficient quantities on its own. But if you want to get creatine, you can get vegan supplementation of it. There's a vegan form of creatine that is perfectly suitable for anybody who wants to bodybuild. And by the way, there's no good evidence that creatine is necessarily more important for you for bodybuilding.
Okay, yeah, no. I'm just saying betterment.
Look, you don't have a point here either way.
No, because I have a point. Stop cutting me off, please. Thank you. Because I remember I was in your previous lives, right? Your main bias for also atheism and
2 questions per person. That's it.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hi.
So I am an atheist, but I'm thinking about converting. Okay, you're gonna laugh at me when I say this, but I started watching Jordan Peterson and his takes on Christianity. And I'm starting to get convinced, maybe a little bit. Okay, well, one of the things he said in one of his interviews was that, like, questioning whether God is real or not is like asking whether numbers are real. And I want to hear what your take is on that.
That God is just a word. I don't know what he meant by that. That was nonsense to me. Numbers are something that we can actually think about clearly, right? 1, 2, 3. That's a clear concept. God isn't a very clear concept, right? If you're talking about a being who loves us and wants to take care of us, that's not clear to us that that thing exists. I mean, where is it? What is it doing? Why doesn't it help or prevent harm from happening? So it's not the same thing as questioning numbers. Questioning numbers is silly because it's clear. It's clearly conceptual to all humans. God is not, especially when you consider the properties, or omnipotence and omnipresence. How is it possible to be all powerful or all knowing? I mean, how do you know things that are beyond yourself? How can you know all things? You'd have to be outside of yourself to know that you know all things.
I feel like his point is that, like, it's all just an abstraction. Like, the belief in God is like spiritual. It's not like materially here. Same with like numbers.
But what does spiritual mean?
I mean, I haven't even read the Bible. I'm still an atheist. I'm just
these people will persuade you because of how ambiguous the wording is, right? Oh, it's spiritual, or it's a divine power.
Okay, if
These are
something
very ambiguous words that don't mean very much. Look, that's why science is such a fruitful process, because the definitions we use are so rigorously defined, and we make sure that we tell the audience what we really mean when we talk about certain words in a scientific paper. Whereas when it comes to religion and this philosophical stuff, it's very ambiguous, very vague, very hard, very, very dull. It's not very clear at all to tell the difference between something imaginary and something real when it comes to God.
But if something drives you to do something better in your life, like be morally good, whatever that means, like if there is a moral like line between good and bad, then, and it makes you become a better person, or, you know, better your community, I feel like spiritually, then he exists. Like it doesn't exist right here to you, maybe not to someone else who doesn't believe, maybe not even to me. But if someone genuinely has a better life because they put a belief into something like that, I think spiritually it's there. It's the same thing with, like, does Satan exist? Like, I would say,
again, by what you mean by spiritual can be compatible with atheism. If you're saying what spiritual is the sense that we should do better, that's compatible with atheism. I agree we should do better. Now, if you're asking what explains the fact that we want to do better as humans, You might say God, but there's a perfectly valid natural explanation. It's called the amygdala. It's called the interior cingulate cortex in the brain. It's called the prefrontal cortex, the frontal lobe. That explains why we ought to do better, why we come up with these oughts. So God or spirituality in that kind of esoteric way is not needed. I can still be a very purposeful, very moral, very content person without any of that nonsense.
That is true. That is true. So my question would be, what makes atheism like the choice? Like, are you convincing people to be atheist, or
Not a
like
choice.
do you not care?
You choose to become an atheist, right?
Oh,
I
okay.
don't choose what I believe. Beliefs are convincing, and they're influenced by my decisions of what I believe is based on how sound or how valid these things are, where the evidence leads us, right? There's no evidence in me of this kind of God thing, so I remain skeptical. Now, you can call me atheist, great, but I don't really care. I'm just a person who's questioning. I'm skeptical. That's all.
Okay. But so you don't have anything against people who do believe in it?
No, I have everything, though, against believing in things that you think are true solely because you pretend they are. That's the problem I have.
Oh, okay. So like in a sense, you're kind of like they're delusional almost.
That's not the right word in every context, but I think that people are often gullible because they lack science literacy.
Because I want to believe so bad, and I'm gonna read the Bible eventually, and I want to build a relationship with Jesus, and I don't even know like what that means. I feel like that would bring me to a better place. I feel like believing in Jesus would make me want to just be better as a person morally.
Okay, great.
And I feel like if that happens, then he exists. Like if that genuinely changes everything about me, then that doesn't that just prove that he's there?
I agree. No, it proves that you can change and be influenced by other people, which is great. But that doesn't tell us anything about the validity or the veracity of the stories of the Bible. Furthermore, I can fully engage in moral actions. I can fully engage in progressive actions in my life without God or religion. Look, why do I do good things?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know why.
The reason why is because I care about the world around me. I care about people.
But why should you?
Do I need religion for that? No. Why should I? Because there's something about my brain that says other people deserve to be considered morally. They deserve to be helped. And I also see empirically progress happen when we change. I see progress happening for the better. I see people getting more rights, more abilities, more prosperity. I see abundance increasing on the planet. It's because we don't fall for those superstitious things. We learn science. We engage in science and we do science. So science, to me, is one of the great sources of fruitfulness in my life. It's something that gives me meaning and purpose in a way. Every time I learn something new, every time I discover something through science, every time I learn more about the world, I gain appreciation for it. And that motivates me on its own. And I don't need any of that Jesus shit. You know?
So, but like, what's the meaning of everything? Like, because God gives you a meaning.
Yeah, you can say God gives you meaning. You can say that God gives you meaning.
But like without it, I feel like there is no meaning. Like Hitler dies, right? And I die. We're going to the same place. So what's the justification, or like, what's the correlation? Like, I don't understand. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Look, what you're doing in your mind is you're going, wait a minute, Hitler, he was a bad person, but he didn't get any punishment for it. That's unjust. That's not just. And you're right, I agree with you. We agree that what the consequences to his actions were not fully just or, served correctly. That's something about the world. And that will influence you to say, well, where's the ultimate judge here? There's got to be somebody judging that. Well, unfortunately, maybe the universe is indifferent. Maybe the universe doesn't care. Maybe things are unfair, and we have to deal with it as people. And look, this is
Doesn't that
something
give you a
that's
sense of
hard. It's hard to
meaninglessness at
grasp
all?
this. It's hard to come to grips with the fact that the universe doesn't care. But it's something that, to a scientifically literate person like me, is just going to emphasize the point of caring for each other more. Because we can look at those stark examples of that, and we can learn from them, right? So, look, the part of this is just having to come to grips with the fact that the universe just doesn't care, but we care. And that underscores why we should do better, because all we got is each other.
Damn, that was actually good. That was good. So, but should I read the Bible or?
Yes, you should read the Bible. Every atheist should read the Bible. Every atheist should read the Quran. Every atheist should read the Vesta. Every atheist should be learning about religion, because knowledge is important. It gives you insight on what people believe, and learning science as well is important. You have to learn science. You got to learn all you can. This way you can make better decisions in your life. And Kyle, what you're doing is good. You're not doing anything bad by going, oh, what do they believe? Oh, they have a better life? Let me see what they believe. That's perfectly natural to do. But if you want to be better guided, you have to learn more about the world around you. That's going to give you better insight on how to change correctly and a better path to go. I wrote a book about this. You're perfect. You're my perfect audience for my book, right? Read, learn, explore. That's how you make better decisions, right? And you're gonna go, oh, well, maybe the Jesus thing is good, okay, but there's other perspectives. You have to remain open to those other perspectives always. I think that's more important than anything else.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, because I was watching Jordan Peterson's talk. I was watching a lot of Jordan Peterson talk about Christianity, and it was all just making sense to me. I was like, damn, maybe because he's not like a typical Christian. I don't know what you would call him.
Typical. Look, the point is that today we're so bombarded by information, by people telling you things. You don't know who to believe anymore. Nobody knows who to believe. You scroll on TikTok, you'll have one person say, oh no, don't become religious. The next TikTok, you better become religious, right? You have so many conflicting ideas thrown at you every day. The solution to this is to become literate, in science and religion and all these things. Become literate overall. But having a scientific mindset is going to be the best compass you can have for navigating this information, right? Right now, you're lost. You don't know what to believe. You don't know who to believe. But science is what disciplines your mind into coming to the proper conclusions based on the evidence. And that's what's going to drive you to make the best decision.
Mm-hmm.
Learn about everything you can. That's how you become a better person. Right? Not by simply subscribing to one religion, but by learning about everything you can. And that will lead to better results than just blindly following some guy on some Jordan Peterson guy who himself doesn't know much about his own religion. He doesn't. You ask him what God is, he doesn't even know what that means. People like that just say things to sound good and to feel better about themselves for not knowing much about the world themselves. You have to remember that most people don't know. Most people are confused about the world, especially even I. Nobody has all the answers. So the best solution is to learn. In every case, learning is the solution.
Okay, thank you. And one more thing, you said, well, now that you're on the topic of learning, I want to learn more about veganism. I'm not vegan. And I don't think I ever will be, to be honest, because I just like the taste of meat. But how would you convince me to become a vegan?
There is no such thing as convincing. Like, do I have to convince you that murder is wrong? No.
No.
That's something that you know intuitively.
Yes.
Same with veganism. It's intuitive to think that we shouldn't harm others. It's just that, Kyle, you're not making the connection right now between animals and the meat you're purchasing at the store. You think
Yeah.
that there's something distinct between the meat and the animal. But when you find the connection, you'll recognize how wrong you're being by slaughtering somebody, because you would never harm a person if they taste good, right? Just like I would never harm an animal if they taste good if I don't have to. You're doing something gravely wrong in my eyes. And if you just learn, again, if you learn about the animals, if you learn how we're consuming them, how we grow them, how we harvest them in factories, look up factory farming. Again, when you expose yourself to the facts, you will recognize what you're doing is wrong.
Will me switching to veganism or becoming a vegan, I feel like that's so insignificant because everyone is not doing that, and like it's not gonna change anything. Like I'm just gonna live my life being vegan for no reason. Like animals are gonna die either way. It's like, and it kind of sucks, like you said.
No, it doesn't have to be that way, Kyle. We are the ones breeding these animals into existence. We're not taking it from the wild, right? We are the ones that are hosting factories by the billions, slaughtering these animals by the billions.
Well, you have to realize how much like restaurants and like fast food places and just a bunch of places where they rely on like meat or animals in general, like leather or whatever. I feel like you're gonna have to topple all of that.
You're right, sir. You're right, Kyle. But eating meat is the norm. But look at how many industries, look at how many restaurants are now implementing vegan options, and only a few percentage of people are vegan. Yet,
I know.
Yet there's a huge talk about it. There's a huge discussions about it, and we're seeing more and more people go vegan by the day. And it's not going to happen tomorrow. We're not saying that'll happen tomorrow. What we're saying is that even a small amount of people can make a big change in long term, especially vegans, because vegans love to be activists. We love talking about it, and that's gonna. So you're thinking that one person is not going to make a big difference, but you're not recognizing that that one person who talks to others and networks with others, it's like a butterfly effect, right? It's like throwing a stone in a puddle. The puddle will ripple across the entire pond eventually, right? As it grows and grows. That's how this works. That's how veganism works. It's like that. It's a butterfly effect of change.
Yeah, I agree.
So these are things that you shouldn't worry about right now. You should be worrying about your actions, and you should be connecting with who the animals are and what you're doing to them.
Okay. So that's like the first step of me trying to become vegan?
Yes, the first step is recognizing what you're doing.
Okay.
That's all.
Because like I just don't see myself, because I've been eating meat my entire life. I don't know if I could ever do it.
That's what I said when I was not vegan. That's what I said to myself. Oh, whatever. Vegans are weak. I used to say that all the time. My cousin was vegan before me, and I thought she was crazy. Oh,
like I like the taste of food, like steaks and stuff.
Then when I learned, I changed, just like anybody else can. I'm no different than you. I'm no special than you. You can change. It just takes education. Okay.
All right. Thank you for having me on.
All right. One last guest. Hello?
Hey, Mike.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you? So, I have I guess I have a question for each of the topics. Sorry. Do you think, do you ever have, considerations that maybe a part of, let's say, the Bible, the Quran, do you think a part of it might be true, but like the government or whatever slowly kind of changed and added their own rules into it?
Uh, of
Because the
course,
Bible does have different changes, right? But
of
do you
course.
think they, sorry,
Yeah, of course, parts of the Bible are correct. I mean, there was a Israel. There is still a one there today. There's a there are pyramids. There's rivers. The Euphrates River is still there. However, just like in Spider-Man, there are true places in Spider-Man, like New York City. It doesn't mean that there's a Spider-Man crawling around the walls. The point is that the supernatural claims of the Bible are ridiculous. And to your second point, yes, the Bible was largely governed by officials who were literate. Back then, nobody was literate. 2,000 years ago, almost nobody was literate. The ones who were literate were typically the ones in power. So the government was heavily involved with the Bible's production, heavily involved. And that's why they lay out entire instructions on how to own a slave and beat your slave, and how to, treat your wife and marry, and, treat your daughters and sons. It's a way of life for those people. And obviously they were produced by people who were officials with power who wanted to control the public to a degree, right? And then another good piece of evidence as to why this is true is because they give you this unfalsifiable, extremely far away consequence that's super dangerous to and super fearful, right? This scary God that will punish you if you don't believe in it, right? They give you this abstract consequence that you can't see, you can't know if it's there, but they tell you that if you don't do it, he's going to come down and harm you, and he's all powerful because he can do it. He's all powerful, right? They give you this being who is your worst nightmare to control you. But look, this is just one part of it, and there's many other reasons why the Bible was produced. But yes, largely it was the governments who used the Bible to instill laws in people and control.
so why do you think they like created the concept of like Jesus, or like why do you think they added such like kind of crazy things like talking snakes and like Noah's Ark and stuff? Why do you think they added that? Wouldn't they think that people would know that it's ridiculous?
Well, no, because back then, again, polytheism was extremely popular at the time. There were many different cults, Roman cults and Egyptian cults and narratives. And the reason why first of all, the people who read the Bible weren't just like, oh yeah, let's just make up these stories. No, they actually probably did believe in many of them, especially the Genesis stories. Why? Because look, they're explanations. They're just something you throw in to explain things, and just yeah. God made it, right? You don't have to question further or inquire further. So it stops the inquiry that way. But also, a lot of those stories were passed down orally for many, many years before the Bible was written, right? We're talking thousands of years. And that's why they made it to the Bible, because they were the latest iteration of stories that people enjoyed and thought were true. Again, most people didn't know the earth was round 2,000 years ago. Most people still were not literate. So the Bible was a way of making people, realize, yeah, it's just these stories are correct. Yeah, God's real and he's going to control us. Very, very easy to give that to somebody who's illiterate.
Yeah, I guess you're right. And for veganism, I guess it's kind of like if you were, let's say you went on a hike, right? And this is just a hypothetical, obviously it's never going to happen. But let's say you went on a hike and you got lost and you came face to face with an animal. The animal was coming to attack you. Let's just say you had a gun on you. You shot it. You had nothing else to eat. You were stranded. Would you eat that animal?
Of course. Absolutely. Veganism doesn't mean I'm perfect. It doesn't mean I'd starve to death. No. It means you do the best you can with what you have. If I was starving on an island, of course I would consume an animal, because I think my life is more valuable than anybody's, even yours. But in the circumstance where I don't have to harm you, I don't, because there's sufficient value in your life. I see sufficient value in your life, in the animals, to not want to harm them needlessly. That's all.
But why would you see value in, let's say, anyone's life? Because I saw someone in the comments talk about, or not in the comments, I think they were up, and they said something about like, oh, Hitler was, a person and he committed the worst crimes, but why does it matter? Because we all die and nothing matters, right? In that case, like, why does anything matter? Why does killing animals matter? Why, like, I heard the argument of even killing babies, but why does that even matter? If at the end of the day, the second you die, it's just like nothing, poof, you're gone. It's like before you were born.
Because the reason why it matters is because it's all we got now. That's it.
But why does
All
that
we
even
have
matter?
is this life now. And why does what?
Like, why does that even matter? Why does literally anything matter?
Because we enjoy it. Right? There is no objective reason why we're here. It seems like we just happen to be here. And you can either go, oh, that's terrible, there must be God. But why does God make it more valuable? What does God matter? Right? What about adding God to the equation makes this life any more meaningful? Are you telling me that if you found out God didn't exist tomorrow, you would just tell your family and your loved ones that you don't care about them anymore? You don't matter, Mom, because God's not real. Would you really think that's the case?
No, I'm not quite religious myself.
Okay, great. So why does your family matter to you? Because you enjoy them. You enjoy their presence. You value their experience. For the same reason I value and why it matters to us that we do better in our life to help others. Because we share this collective value, the understanding that life is something worth keeping and being prosperous with.
So I understand that you're not too fond of like, hell or heaven or, any of those like things, but I guess I'm sure you've read other religions. Do you consider any other possible thing to happen other than hell or heaven?
Do I expect?
No. Do you think that's a possible outcome of, reincarnation or spirits roaming or just anything
I don't know
within
what
other
these things
religions?
mean. What do you mean by reincarnation? I mean, if you can give me a logical, valid reason, sure, it might be possible.
Sure. So your body's basically a shell, right? And I guess you have a soul inside of you. Do you think once you die, that body is just a
What's
shell?
the soul? Look, what do you mean by these things? What's the soul? How do you test it? How do you figure it out? How do you poke it? You're just saying buzzwords. So there's a soul. We don't know what these means. You're not attempting at all to perform any rigorous verification of this. You're just saying words. I don't know what that means. How can I possibly assess if it's likely or not?
True. Okay. So what do you think about like paranormal activities that happen that aren't from humans, but like, things moving, shattering on camera, CCTV footage, whatever it is?
Yeah. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh no, there can't be ghosts. There's no way. But although I don't believe in ghosts, I ask myself questions. What are we observing when we see things move in the camera? Are there explanations for those things? Is the first thing we say is, oh, ghosts? I think that's a mistake. I think we should ask better questions. What explains these things? I mean, oftentimes these ghosts are typical, somebody left the lights off or lights on and there was an electrical thing, or there is, the painting just fell off the wall because the thumbtack came out. There are many reasons. There are many things that happen in our lives that humans, as fallible people we just don't understand them. We just don't consider them, right? So we make up these crazy explanations when in reality they're just things that happen by chance. But yes, at the same time, there are many instances that we cannot explain. You're right. There are many things that we can't explain, but that's all they are. There are instances that are unexplainable. To go any further than that is a mistake too. To say, oh, we can't explain it, therefore ghosts. That's a mistake. We have to ask better questions. I'm open to there being a paranormal, whatever that means,
Yeah.
But I need more data. I need more evidence. And I'd be the first one to admit it. Yes, ghosts are real if the evidence was sufficient, but at this moment, it's not.
Okay,
And
so
trust
I'm
me,
not necessarily talking.
trust me, I have had many experiences in my life that I still cannot explain to this day. But I still remain open. I ask. I just my standards of evidence are high. But I'm still open to there being an afterlife or whatever. Just very open. I'm one of the most open-minded people there are because I want to know the truth. I'm open to it. I just don't. My standards are high.
I'm not necessarily talking about like people being like possessed or whatever, because you're right, that could be different situations, like, you know, schizophrenic or, you know, manic episodes or whatever it may be, right? I'm talking like specifically about those, you know, hospital CCTV footages of like, you know, cabinets opening and stuff falling out of them and all these random stuff.
We don't know. How could you possibly say that they're authentic? I mean, in every case,
You're right.
there are people that can, you know, Photoshop things. I mean, it is photo evidence and video evidence is a very poor evidence of supernatural in my eyes.
So if you came across something like that, would it change your mind? Like, let's say if, you know, like you're walking down the kitchen, your cabinet opens and stuff starts falling out of it, would that change your mind?
Not immediately. No, if that just happened to me, I wouldn't just go, oh, there's a ghost now. No, I would, again, because I'm very disciplined scientifically, I'm going to ask myself better questions than the average person. I'm not going to say, oh, there must have been a ghost. What was in the drawer? Was there a person in there? Was there an animal in there? A squirrel? Was there a snake? Or was there a draft? Or, you know, I'd ask myself these things. Was the drawer misaligned and it fell? Was there a flaw in the dresser? Was there, you know, we have to exhaust all those explanations first before we just go, oh yeah, there's ghosts. That's Casper. That's a mistake. We should exhaust all the likely possibilities first before we resort to magic.
Okay. And my final question, I guess I had a question for everything. My final question for science is, I don't know if this is 100% true, but I guess you've heard of it. Have you seen those, I believe it was like 12 planets, I think, that NASA or whatever, they saw that was pretty much identical to Earth. Like they had the blue water, the green, whatever. And it was named like numbers. I forgot. It was like N12, whatever it may be. I think you heard of it. What do you think about those?
You're talking about the Kepler system?
Yeah, whatever it may be. Do you think there's life on
First
there?
of all, exoplanets, we have no idea what they look like. We don't know what they look like visually. We only can infer the size, the mass, the atmospheric composition indirectly. And this is certain methods, like there's transient methods where you look at the star, you look at the planet move over the star, you measure the luminosity of the star before it moves over and after, and you show the difference shows you how massive it is, how luminous it is. Mm-hmm. The point is that, yes, there are billions of possible Earth-like exoplanets out there in our galaxy. I mean, there are about 400 billion stars in our galaxy. Each star typically contains about 5 or 6 planets around them. So there's trillions of planets. There's going to be billions of Earth-like planets based on the numbers we have. We've discovered maybe a few hundred or so Earth-like planets with very similar masses to ours. They're in the habitable zone, so that means that they are likely to be habitable to life. And we know this because of the different methods we use to infer their existence. But yes, there could be all kinds of Earth-like planets with life on them. It's very plausible, very, very plausible, considering how many planets there are. The thing is, though, that Earth is probably rare in the same way we are configured today. It's very rare. Number one, because most stars in our galaxy are smaller than our sun. And this is not good for a few reasons. Number one is a lot of those smaller stars emit more X-rays, more dangerous radiation that might destroy life. Mm-hmm. Another reason is because a lot of those smaller stars just don't produce enough energy to really sustain complex life like we. So life is probably out there. It's just going to be rare to find complex life like we. But given how large the universe is, I'm sure there's countless other complex life out there. It's just far away.
My final question would be super quick, kind of just adding on to the ghost thing. What do you think about those those kind of stories, or not really stories, but kind of those things about how the same specific house that each person goes into that are like 100 years old, every person that moves in, I guess they experience something, and that's the reason why they move out or whatever, or so on and so on, that don't make huge headlines to make it believable, but it's just their personal experience.
Again, every question I approach is the same way. What's the evidence for it? How do we know? How do we falsify this thing? And when it comes to these cases, and I've heard these cases before, oh, this house is haunted, the past residents gave a note, and it says that there are these weird creatures here. I don't know. There's all kinds of stories out there like that.
Yeah.
But again, how do you falsify these things? How do you verify? Until the day there's a ghost detector, until the day the Ghostbusters become real, we don't have a way of measuring these ghosts, whatever they are, if they exist. Look, again, I'm open to there being ghosts. I just don't see enough evidence for it.
Yeah, I get you.
But furthermore, to sit here and bask in these weird questions about ghosts and stuff, it's cool, right? Don't get me wrong, it's fun to do a little bit. But look, there are more important questions out there that are more accessible to us. Wasting time in these things that we just don't have the answers to at the moment, and that's a largely waste of time. There are way more exciting answers out there that we actually have answers to.
Yeah, but I was just kind of thinking, like, in the sense of, if ghosts are real, then that kind of would somewhat prove, I guess, a somewhat afterlife, because if ghosts are real, then, that's why I asked these.
We don't know what that means either. Again, what is a ghost? And if you're talking about, oh, it's a being that looks like a person, but who we thought died but is not there, okay. But how does that demonstrate that there's a God, or how does it demonstrate that there's something higher? All that demonstrates is that, again, there's a phenomenon that we just don't have the explanation to at the moment.
Yeah.
Why is it that ghosts must be something outside of science's parameters of understanding? What if there is a scientific way of measuring ghosts? What if one day we do have a way of measuring these things?
Yeah.
We don't know the full implications of the things we don't understand. By definition, we don't understand them.
Yeah.
We
Okay.
have to be careful. We just be cautious, skeptically cautious.
Yep. All right. Thanks, man.
Okay. Who wants more questions? I'm really tired. One more, maybe one more.
Yo, hello. Can you hear me, Mike?
Yeah, how old are you?
I'm 18.
Okay, what do you got?
I was just gonna say that I've been watching you for 3 years, and I really appreciate what you're doing. I used to be religious. You used to make me really angry, like all these people here. So I just want to say to the religious people that watch this and are angry, that there's other perspectives that you have to there's other perspectives that you got to consider, and they should really hear about what you're speaking here. And I'm really nervous too. I'm sorry, but I just wanted to say that.
Okay.
My family's also religious, so it was really hard for me. But yeah, I appreciate you, Mike. Thank you.
Yeah. It's look, the reason why I do what I do is not because I'm here to say God isn't real. You better become an anti-theist. You're dumb if you believe in God. I'm not here to say that. I'm here to fill in the gaps between people's departure from religion. And people feel like when they leave religion, they feel like there's this gap. There's this unfilled hole of spiritual hunger. You're looking for something spirit. You're looking for something more. And I'm here to show people that there is a way to be happy and content as an atheist. And you don't have to be scared of the God or religion and all that stuff. So, all right. Is that all?
Yeah, that's all, Mike. Yeah, thank you for going live and showing like all these like big ideas and stuff. I watch you every day, or I try to. So yeah, thank you, Mike. That's all.
All right. Thank you. I'm not an arbiter of truth at all. I'm just like you guys. I just ask questions. That's all.
What's up, Mike?
Hi. How are you?
Not too bad yourself.
Good.
So it's atheism. Question about that. So you haven't always been atheist, right?
I became an atheist about 10 years ago.
What was the driving factor for that?
I was asked a question that I couldn't answer at the moment.
Yeah.
And I questioned further. I inquired further about the Bible and science, and I realized there's a confliction between the two, and it further influenced me to ask questions about God, and that's why I'm here.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Anyway, so for the Big Bang and evolution and those topics, okay? So the Big Bang, I mean, doesn't that require faith on your part to believe in that? And if it doesn't require faith at all, do you say it doesn't require faith because we have like the cosmic microwave, things like that, or what's the deal?
The Big Bang is a fact. It really happens. We can see it today. We just don't have the full puzzle completed yet. We know it happened because we can see the CMB radiation, like you said. We can see primordial gas clouds. We can see the abundance ratio of elements in the universe. We can see the redshifting of galaxies. These are all pillars of evidence that demonstrate the Big Bang happened.
Okay, but how could this occur? Let's say the universe is, I would argue the universe is in a closed system. It would have to be. Or would you say it's just a fully open system? Because, and the laws of thermodynamics say that chaos can't create order, but only in a closed system. I would have to argue that the universe is closed to an extent. So how can the Big Bang, which was chaos, create such order?
The Big Bang was not chaos. The Big Bang was very orderly.
What is the definition of the Big Bang to you?
The Big Bang is a point in time when the universe was smaller, hotter, and denser. And the Big Bang was not the beginning of time necessarily. It could be a phase the universe goes through. It's just that the universe is more orderly, and then due to entropy, it became more disorderly. And we are just part of the process of this cosmic evolution. It's not something from nothing. It's not chaos from order or order from chaos at all. It's something very well understood. And there's no reason to think it's not true.
So you think that the Big Bang was the beginning of time?
No, not necessarily.
Well, so do you think that space-time existed infinitely before the Big Bang?
Very possible, yes, that the universe goes through cycles of Big Bangs and contractions. The universe can go in a Big Bang and then contract again forever.
Right, but space-time, logically can't be eternal.
Yes, it can. It can be eternal.
How? I'm trying to ask you this question.
It seems perfectly valid that time, just like space, can be infinite. I don't see anything logically invalid there.
Because in order for us to be having this conversation, there would have had to be a point A.
A point A?
There has to be a point A for us to have this conversation.
A point A? What do you mean a point A?
Well, if space-time is eternal, which you're suggesting, it means there's an infinite series of events happening, adding up to this moment in time. In order for this moment in time to occur, there would have had to have been a beginning state. So
not if time is infinite.
So if time is infinite, let me ask you this question then: if there's infinite dominoes knocking over, and this conversation is the conversation we're having right now is the end point, how long does it take for the last domino to hit this moment being our conversation?
It doesn't matter because the passage of time would be happening for infinitely. So it would be able to infinitely pass the amount of dominoes you would for an infinite amount of time.
You're saying that A
No matter
and
how many
B.
there are.
You're saying that point A and B on this time plane is in an infinite plane
Yes.
with an infinite
The amount of
regress and an
dominoes,
infinite
Giovanni,
succession.
hold on. Let me illuminate this more. The amount of dominoes are infinite, and the amount of time allowed for those dominoes to pass is infinite too. So, given this infinite universe, it's gonna be the case that we will get to this time, and we might be here again. What if the universe is cyclic in time, and that it goes from A to B, back to A, then to B, back to A, then to B? So you're forgetting, you're discounting these possibilities. You're just saying, oh no, there has to be a beginning. No, there doesn't. have to be a beginning.
Mike, that would be considered like appealing to some sort of probability, okay? Because that would be what you're mentioning is the B theory of time, which means that
No, I'm
obviously
not. I did not invoke the B theory at all. You're mistaken.
you did though, because you're mentioning that things could be secular, things can repeat themselves, things can be.
That's compatible with A series.
And you're also saying that things can be happening at all at the same time, which is the B theory of time.
That's not what I'm saying, sir. You're
Okay,
confused. What I said just previously was perfectly compatible with A series.
Okay.
The A series of time also refutes what you're saying because there is no tensed version of time, in my view, actually. In my view, time isn't tensed. The past and the future all exist simultaneously. It doesn't mean they all happened at the same time. Clearly, there are distinctions between time events.
Okay.
But it's that case that the passage of time, what we call the passage of time, that's an illusion. That's an emergent phenomenon.
Yep.
Fundamentally, there is no passage of time in the first place. So your entire premise of there having to be this passage of dominoes is also false.
Well, I mean, we witness change, which invokes time.
I agree. But change is not fundamental. Change can be emergent. Time can be fundamental, but change is something that we perceptually perceive.
Okay, so you think that in conclusion, you think that there can be an infinite regress of time as well as an infinite successive amount of time, and that time could actually be cyclical and repeat itself, and that there's a possibility that deja vu that we experience could be time repeating itself over and over again?
I don't see how that follows.
Well, deja vu is would be us
Deja
experiencing
vu
somewhere
is
else.
well explained by brain farts. Your brain has a hard time remembering things, and sometimes there are gaps in our memories. And sometimes we feel like, oh, we've been here before because of some process that malfunctions in the brain. It doesn't mean that we were there before. It could be the case that your brain just goes through these little brain farts sometimes.
You know, the
That's
reason
a
I
better
say that
explanation than we going back in time and seeing things. What's your next question? Because this is a very, very fruitless conversation at the moment.
Yeah, no, I'm just gonna leave it at that, man. I want to get to atheism with you, but it's gonna be a long conversation. I'll get ready to head to the store.
Okay, what is it?
No, I said I'm getting ready to head to the store, so I don't have time for the conversation. But I can come back later.
All right, bye.
Oh, no.
Why is it hard to understand that we might just happen to be here? Yeah, there's something about the human brain that wants to separate our lives from what else is out there, right? We think there's a boundary to things. We want to put boundaries to things. Oh, the Big Bang. Where did the Big Bang happen? It didn't happen in one place. The Big Bang happened where you're standing. That's not intuitive, but it's true. Where's the edge of the universe? Well, maybe there is no edge. Maybe it goes on forever and it was always there. Many times the universe is counter to our intuition. The truth is oftentimes challenging our intuition. You know?
Hello?
Hey, what's your question?
So obviously you believe in the Big Bang, but where did the life come from?
Life is a chemical process. It's just molecules interacting together, generating processes like replication and metabolism. These are life processes. Life is a process, not an object, right? The stuff you're made of, the molecules you're made of, are found all over the universe. Amino acids, even lipids, even nucleic acids, the things that make up DNA, are found all over the universe. They're made by gases. So the ingredients are easily explained. It's what makes you live and animated. That's the big question. And the answer is fairly simple. It's that life is a process that non-life does. It's very elaborate chemistry, but it's just chemistry. It's not magic.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Yeah, just good question. Just keep learning. You know, this is what this is all about here. Learn about science, learn about philosophy, learn about atheism, learn about veganism, learn about everything. That's what makes you a better person.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, Mike. I have a question about evolution. So, like, I believe in it, everything. Like, I understand most of it. The only thing I don't get is how do things come about? Like, how do we develop eyes? How did that come about? Like, specific traits. Like, I get how things improve, but how does that come about?
How do we develop eyes?
Yeah, like something like an eye. Like, how did that come from nothing? Like, how did we evolve to have eyes?
You have to remember that humans, our physiology, the way our organs are set up and configured in our bodies, all of the organs you have today can be traced back to simpler structures in the past. Even cells, parts of a single-celled organism has the precursors to organs. Now, of course, cells don't have organs, but the point is that over time, as natural selection takes place, things become more complicated. Well, those structures are going to co-evolve with the rest of the physiology. So when it comes to multicellular life, well, they're going to have more complicated structures, which are going to have certain organs that we have, are going to resemble the precursors to organs that we have. And when it comes to like worms and fish is a great example of a common ancestor that has the precursors to lungs, precursors to jaws, to things like this, our facial structures, ears. We can find that we actually have a lot of parts of our physiology are connected to what fish have. When we see through time and through the fossil record, the structural changes that we went through over time. So look, very complicated. It's a great question, right? How do these organs develop? But the point is that the general idea is that your organs come from simpler precursors that co-evolve with each other in different animals over time. And that's why over time, every organ in your body became more complicated. So for example, to illuminate this example with the eye formed through simple cells. They're called photoreceptor cells. And these cells contain simple proteins that respond to light signals. They respond to these stimuli of light. Now, those single-celled organisms with these proteins, then they evolved different structured cells. They had many of these cells in alignment that became like an oval. Now you can see direction of light, right? This side gets illuminated. Well, now the organism knows that light's coming from this way, not this way. And then it became spherical, right? Now you can see light in every direction, 360 degrees. So the point is that the eye emerged from that process, a very, very slow, gradual process. But the point is that proteins is what really contain the instructions to give rise to things like organs and eyes and kidneys and lungs and hearts. And they're all encoded by DNA. Your DNA contains all these instructions to make every one of your organs. Very complicated, very amazing stuff. Very difficult to grasp at first.
Yeah, I just think that's awesome.
Yes, it is amazing, and that's one of the most amazing things about our evolution. So keep learning. It's very hard. Look, I'm not a biologist by any means, but learning this stuff, there's so many things to learn. Is that all?
Well, thank you, Mike. I watch your YouTube videos every night. Love them. Yeah, keep them up. I love the God debates the most.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
Hello? Hello?
Hey, what's your question?
Yeah, I just had a question. I guess basically on like biochemistry, like, I just find it a little like you don't, do you think there's any like connection? This might kind of be like a dumbed down question a little bit, but do you think there's any connection between like this, like a psychological, like, how do I explain this? Like, do you think there's a connection with like psychiatrics and biochemistry with things like how they accumulate, how the order of biochemistry, like how cells pull together, how proteins pull together, everything?
If there's a psychological connection?
Yeah.
You mean like you're asking like if there's like if there's like an intentional?
Yeah, like for like let me see, like for an example, like a virus, right? Like there's no brain, there's no complexity really within a virus except like the RNA, I guess. But it knows it has to go to a cell. Like, is that just like instinctive, or is there some sort of psychological factor?
It doesn't know it has to go to a cell, right? There are vast chemical influences on the molecular level, right? Molecules are very long, especially RNA is a very long chain of molecules. It's going to be influenced by many things in its environment, and that's going to give its guidance as to where it has to go. It doesn't know, right? There's nobody. Your cells don't know where to go on their own. It's just that the environment they find themselves in gives, in the way they interact with their environment, gives them the guidance to move the way they do and interact the way they do. Now, look, these forces on the molecular level are extremely counterintuitive to how things work on the macro world.
Yeah.
But in the molecular world, things are really different. It's a different world. But yes, you might, from the macro world, you might think that, there's somebody who's moving the viruses, who's moving the cells, who's moving the electrons in my brain. Well, it's way more complicated than that. And
well, I had another
molecules
interesting
interact in
question
ways
too.
that seem like there's somebody behind it, but it's just complicated chemistry.
Yeah, like I don't think there's like huge contradictories within, but I do think there are some things that are like indirectly contradictory, if that makes sense. Like, for example, like everything that I'm looking at is just a reflection off of light and light protons, correct? Like you would agree with that, right?
No, you don't see with your eyes, you see with your brain. Your brain is what's making you see the things you do.
Yes, but the signaling from that is coming from my optics, right? My eyes.
Well, your eye just inputs the data, your brain synthesizes it and generates what you see.
Okay. Well, that's like, so I'm definitely learning some things here, because like the way how you're explaining it is making me like think differently about it for sure. But I guess that's really the only question, was really just a psychiatric with biochemistry kind of. But that's pretty much it, man. I appreciate what you do.
Yeah, man. Keep stay curious. Keep learning.
That's pretty much it.
Keep learning.
Hi, how are you?
Hi.
Hi, I have a simple question. Let's assume there is a creator, and this creator, he chose a man to tell us about himself, and let's say that this man predicted 100 events in the future. Will that be convincing for you to accept the creator without seeing him?
Depends on what the predictions are. If you're predicting the weather,
No.
anybody can
Very
do that. If
specific.
you're predicting the fact that there might be a storm next week, anybody can predict that.
Like very specific predictions, like give you the name of the city, the war, the outcome of the war, the size of the army.
Yeah, those are not compelling prophecies to me. And what do you talk about? The Quranic prophecies?
No, I'm not talking about any religion. I'm just talking in general.
Okay. That's too vague of a question. I mean, we'd have to investigate the predictions and.
Okay. Can I give you an example? For example, let's say, I don't know if you want to talk about the topic or not, but what's happening right now in Palestine? If a man said the name of the city, what's going to happen to them and when? Will that be impressive?
No, because Gaza and Palestine, these are central places where conflicts have happened for centuries. There's nothing special about Gaza or Palestine that would make me go, oh, somebody predicted that 100 years, 200 years ago. That's not compelling to me because those are very, very susceptible to conflict, those areas.
For example, the people of Gaza, they will have to stay in their land and they don't have to leave. They have to stay.
Yeah,
and that's exactly
that's not a compelling prophecy to me because anybody can predict that.
Also, if he said when it's going to happen.
When? He predicted 2024?
No, he said after the kingdom, which is the Ottoman Empire in our case.
After the kingdom?
Yes.
That's too vague of a statement. Oh, after the kingdom. What do you mean by kingdom? Which one? I mean, how long after the kingdom? These are too general, too vague of a statement.
Okay. And do you know the invasion of Baghdad by the Mongols?
What about it?
Do you know the events?
No, I don't care too much about history, to be honest. But what about it?
So the Mongols, they invaded Baghdad in 1258. And they destroyed the city, they burned the books, the libraries, everything.
Okay.
So the prophecy is that he said where the enemy will be coming from, the city they would invade. He described the faces of the people. He said broad faces, small eyes. He said the outcome, they will be
broad faces, small eyes. Who couldn't predict that? That's too vague of a statement. Oh, these people are going to have 2 eyes to small eyes.
No, small eyes or broad faces.
That's
and the name of the city.
That is way too
vague.
Of this is not convincing to anybody rational. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your time.
Hello, how are you?
Hi.
So I see that you're a vegan and I am too. I also have a lack of belief in a God. But I had 2 questions for you. The first one as a vegan and the next one as an atheist. When it comes to veganism, I often debate it as well. I often win a lot. But I mean, how do you feel about the argument of subjective morality when it comes to veganism or moral relativism? Relativism when it comes to veganism, and do you feel like that debunks the argument to go vegan?
Not at all. No, veganism has nothing to do with meta-ethics. Not even necessarily normative ethics. It has to do with a simple principle to minimize and reduce your harm and exploitation to the animals. That's all that matters. Whether or not morality is subjective or objective, it doesn't change the fact that veganism is, to me or you, going to be better. And if
when you say better,
look, the reason why we debate veganism is to do an internal critique on the non-vegan, right? We're asking the non-vegan, why are you harming animals? What justifies that? And we're testing how consistent they are. It has nothing to do with my meta-ethical position. It has to do with their ethical framework. And we're testing to see if they're being consistent. And if they're not, then we can say you should be vegan, right? That's all that's the debate is about. It's not about whether morality is objective or not.
Okay. And when it comes to atheism, so I do have a lack of belief in God. I kind of teeter on because sometimes I'm unsure, depending on when or the last time I talked about it. But how do you feel about certain philosophical beliefs? Because the three that I'm thinking of, especially when it relates back to atheism, is nihilism, existentialism, and absurdism. If you had to say which one you subscribe to the most, if at all, which one would that be?
I'm an optimistic nihilist.
I love how you had to preface that first.
I have come to grips with the fact that there seems to be no inherent meaning to reality. But in a way, out of that process, I've found some kind of meaning in my own life, subjectively. So I can, to me, those are irrelevant philosophical positions in the first place. I mean, come on. What matters to me more is what am I really doing in my life, right? To me, what matters more is what am I doing to make meaning happen? I don't get stuck in those philosophical dilemmas like, oh, what's the meaning of everything? I care more about my actions. What am I doing? How am I making the world a better place actively? And I could care less about if you're nihilistic or not.
Yeah, and I actually agree with you on that. And one question before I go, because I just thought of another one. But who's your favorite vegan activist and or debater?
I'm not sure if I have one, but I think Earthling Ed is.
I knew you were gonna say his name.
Look, he is a very kind person, and that rubs off very nicely at people. People love kind people. I think if you're going to go into these kinds of conversations, being kind is extremely valuable and extremely fruitful.
Mm-hmm.
However, when it comes to the philosophical discussions where when people really ask him questions, he's not going to be the one that's going to be the most capable of answering those questions. We have to look into other people that are more philosophically inclined. But again, there is no. That's why I don't like answering this question. Who's your favorite? I don't have one. I think that every vegan activist has their own way of doing it, and collectively, the movement is better off because of all the differences in people.
Right. And that was all. Have a nice night.
Okay. Thank you. All right, guys. Yeah, Ciara. I like her. No debate. Sometimes you have to ask questions. Sometimes asking questions, sometimes going to places where you might not want to go, being pressed on the issues, being questioned. I think that's important sometimes. We often just want to fight. We don't want to think. Have you ever used the laryngeal nerve in your evolution debates? Yes, I have, yes. Yes, the left recurrent laryngeal nerve in giraffes took a 15-foot detour in its evolution, right? A giraffe, in other words, a giraffe has a particular nerve that goes 15 feet from its neck to its body, but it's not necessary. It could have just went 2 inches and it would have been sufficiently performative. Yet evolution has a way of making changes happen with no clear motive for perfection, right? It's brutal. Evolution, natural selection is freaking brutal, and that's clear. And that's a clear, stark example of evolution taking place without somebody making a perfect thing or design. It's just the remnants of a brutal nature, indifferent nature. Okay. Should we get rid of carnivorous animals? I don't think vegans are necessarily committed to that. I think that a lot of the vegans want to say, oh, well, carnivorous animals should be culled because, they're causing more harm than good. But I think it would be impractical to be nature's police. We don't live in a perfect world. I mean, if we live in a perfect world, maybe I would consider that, but we don't. But number two, animals aren't fully responsible for their actions. I mean, come on. Punishing carnivorous animals for killing animals, it would be like punishing a baby for pooping its pants. It was barely rational in that decision. It was not fully responsible. Could it be fully responsible? I don't know about that. That's another concern I have about that. But yes, in a perfect world, yes, I think that carnivorous animals are net negative. But to be nature's police is impractical. The baby should have known better. Yeah. I also think those kinds of discussions are just distractions to the main point. Veganism is about the actions we can stop today, that we can practically solve today. Going into all these crazy futures, and that's just a distraction to the main problem. But yeah. Well, we had some good questions today. Who has really been thinking a lot from this live? Who's like, damn, whoa, this is crazy, bro. What is all this stuff? Let me see what this is all about. All right. Yeah, man. It's science. It's powerful. And by the way, science has affected every one of my views on life. Me being scientifically literate has helped me in veganism. It has helped me in atheism. It has helped me in my finances, in my ethics, in my health, in my career, in the way I treat other people, right? It's helped me in every single way. Science is more than just learning things. It's also about thinking. Thinking in a way that makes the world more colorful. It just changes. It's life-changing. It changes the way you see things. I see the world vastly differently than I did when I was an atheist, when I was a Christian. I see the world in a completely different way. That's all I'm trying to convey here with these debates, right? I'm trying to convey my perspective as much as I can to show people that life can be great, life can be amazing without religion. You can be a better person without maintaining the status quo and doing what everybody else does, right? You can do better. And in turn, it makes the world better too, right? Every time you learn more, you're benefiting the world. Some way or somehow. All right. But yeah, unfortunately, a lot of people don't talk about these things, right? A lot of atheists just want to debate to look like the cooler, more smarter philosophy bro. Which, okay, that's cool, but I think there's more there's more than just debating logic. I think there's more there, more to this than that. There's an emotional perspective. There is an emotional aspect of all this. I feel a sense of gratitude for life because I learned about it, because I'm learning more about it. The more I learn about the world, the more I appreciate it, the more gratitude I get. That's a big motivator. Big motivator for me. Hope I was a breath fresh of air. Yeah. Look, I appreciate that, but I don't hunger praise. I don't. I could care less if people like me or not. Right? Trust me. If I did, I wouldn't be here. I don't care if you like me or not. That doesn't make me any happier or sad if you like me or not. I care more about making people feel something by asking these questions, by pondering these things, by debating these things. I want people to really feel the change, you know. You know, when I was a kid, I loved magic. I loved doing magic tricks. I loved doing card tricks. I loved waving the wand and having a coin appear in my hat. I loved doing pranks. And the reason why is because I liked seeing people's reactions to those things. I loved seeing the surprise on their face when they, wow, how did you do that, right? That's what I look for all the time. And that's what I try to cause in people. I want people to feel it every second, every day, a piece of that every day, right? Surprise, awe, wonder. Just appreciation for being human, being alive. That's far deeper than any of these stupid debates can do, right? The debates just get you thinking, right? But ultimately, there's something deeper here that I want people to see. I don't care if there's a God. I don't give a shit if there's a God or not. I don't. I care more about having the perspective I do. Having this dynamical perspective.